see sweat or hear fan noises, I sincerely apologize. It's terribly, terribly hot. I had a rough morning. I woke up, had a headache, had to run some errands, had to ship some stuff, and then as you can see, I went to the library. So let's talk about what I got first, and then we'll talk about what I'm reading and my plans for the week. So first up, we have On a Sunbeam by Tillie Walden. I have read a couple of other graphic novels by Tillie Walden. I enjoy their art style. It's like a romance space opera, and they meet in space. I don't know much else other than that. Excited for it. I have read one Tillie Walden that I really loved, one that I didn't love so much. I've read a couple. I've read more than two, I think. Mixed results, so I'm hoping I really like this. Big space fan. Then I came across this graphic novel that was on the new releases shelf at the library. I guess not a new release because it's quite damaged, but it's about a young girl who's institutionalized. She possesses psychic abilities. She has an alien father, and she's sought by rival factions of a government of a faraway world. Her and her brother are unwittingly embroiled in a deadly power struggle. Her soul is the battleground for champions from alien wars, the streets of Earth and other dimensions, in a tale which combines science fiction, fantasy, and romance in a unique graphic novel saga. I thought this was set in the same world as The Sandman, but I guess it's just the introduction is just by Neil Gaiman, so I'm excited to give it a shot. I'm seeing Avalon, so this must have something to do with Arthurian legend or something, so excited for that. Next up, we have 1, 2, and 3 of I Hear the Sunspot. This is about a child with a hearing disability in university. He's isolated, but he meets another boy who he befriends, and I think there's a romance. Sounds cute, and I got the first 3 volumes, because when I start a manga or a graphic novel series, I like to have multiples on deck, because I feel like the first one is always kind of setting up the story, introducing the characters, and then you really get into the meat and potatoes for the rest of the story. So it's hard to judge a series right off the bat. So then I also got 1, 2, and 3 Mr. Villain's Day Off, which this cover is just so cute, and the back says evil supervillains need self-care too. An intergalactic evil league seeks to take over the world and destroy humanity. One of its mysterious leaders, known only as the General, has 2 main weaknesses: delicious food and cute fluffy panda bears. On this dastardly villain's precious days off from work, he heads to the zoo to gaze at the pandas. Their adorable faces just melt away all the stress of evil doing. Will his secret be jeopardized forever when a hero out to save the Earth catches him in the act? That sounds mega cute. Excited for those. I don't know why I keep saying excited. I'm excited for all of these. We then have volume 5 of Heartstopper. I have grown to really love this series. I know that it's extremely popular. It's like 2 boys falling in love in high school. I really loved 3 and 4, and I'm excited to see how their love story evolves. I think there's going to be one more after this one. I believe this was supposed to be the last one, but they decided to do another one. This is about a road trip or something. Very cute. So definitely going to get to this one sooner rather than later, possibly today. The last ones that we have to talk about are completely 100% inspired by Fee. I'll leave their channel linked down below. They put out a Hunger Games reading vlog, and it was just so good, and it made me want to reread the Hunger Games series. So I got the first 3, so the Hunger Games, Catching Fire, and Mockingjay. And then I also, of course, got the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Like a lot of us, I read the Hunger Games trilogy when I was a teenager. It was not as influential in my reading experience as I think it was for a lot of kids. I read it maybe 2 or 3 times, but I was more of a divergent child. I loved the romances. And this one, I just never felt very compelled by her relationships with Gale and Peeta. And so I didn't really love this series, but I recently watched the movie, and like a ton of other people, very much loved it, and I never really considered picking this up until I watched that movie, and I watched Fee's vlog, and they were kind of explaining some things that existed in the book that I wish had existed in the movie. So I'm excited to dive into this one. So I actually have already started the Hunger Games. I got the ebook from my library. So I'm going to start this today, and the majority of this vlog is going to be about the Hunger Games. Hopefully I enjoy them. Like I said, I didn't love them when I was a kid, but I think particularly the political aspects of it were a little bit lost on me because I just didn't really care. So I'm hoping that this time around, at the ripe age of 20, I almost said 62, what the fuck? At the ripe age of 27, I will enjoy them for the amazing storycraft that Suzanne Collins has. So we're gonna get right into it. We're gonna do some reading and we're gonna have a good week. So let's get into it. Okay, so I am 18 pages in, not very far in, and I started this yesterday, I think, when I was reading the ebook, and my immediate thought was, this is so plainly written, at least from my experience, like a staple, particularly with YA dystopian novels, particularly around this time frame. They all felt a little bit like quick to read, but also not very, this happened, not super emotional or anything like that, which is interesting. I caught up on a couple of the webtoons that I've been reading, My Mafia Nanny or The Mafia Nanny, and then I was waiting for new episodes to be revealed. This is basically about a woman who was trained to be like an elite nanny, and she becomes the nanny of a mafia father who is part of the crime family that killed her family when she was a kid. And then I caught up to that, and then I also caught up to Fall into Paradise, which is like a historical romance about a girl who gets arranged married to the prince of the king or something like that, and I'm enjoying both of those. And then I started to read Giant Days, which I thought I didn't like. I thought I'd tried before, but I hadn't. I'd actually read, I think it was Paper Girls or something. This is actually on Kindle Unlimited. The first 3 are. I've been in a graphic novel manga mood, as you can tell, and so I found out that these were on Kindle Unlimited, so I picked up the first 3. Well, I read the first one and absolutely freaking adored it. Proceeded to order the first 6. This is basically about 3 girls who are not roommates, but their dorm rooms are very close to each other in university, and so they become really good friends, and they're just like 3 vastly different personalities, and we just follow their shenanigans with relationships and friendship and all of that, and it's tons of fun. I love the art style, love the characters. I'm really enjoying it so far. I might get to the actual Hunger Games themselves today, and then if I manage to get to that today, then I will move on to a graphic novel. Really liking what I'm reading so far, and yeah. I am very hot, and I would like to shower. So I think it's time to dance and take a shower. So I am 97 pages in. I didn't end up getting to the Hunger Games part like I wanted to yesterday because my partner and I hung out for the rest of the evening, but I am enjoying this quite a bit. I am flying through it. I'm noticing things that I for sure didn't notice as a teen that I find very interesting, like the concept of the Mockingjay symbolically, like the actual concept of the Mockingjay very much reminds me of when the CIA used cats to spy on people in the 60s. And it failed miserably, but it reminds me of that concept of like using animals as essentially spies, which is interesting for sure, especially because I just read that book about human impact, like essays by John Green. So I think the concept of us using animals in that way is interesting, obviously terrifying, but also interesting. We are caught up to where they have 3 days of training before they go into the arena. This is kind of an opportunity for people who are going to sponsor them in the game to take a look at what they're doing. There's also a panel of judges and to like judge their skill and their worth, and also to size up the competition and so. But I am enjoying it. I do think there's a lot of like political nuance and things that I missed when I was a teenager because all I cared about was kissing, which is not that different from how I am today, but I definitely like other books that aren't all about kissing. So I am going to continue reading it today. And hopefully finish it today. I do have some side business stuff that I should do when I get home. Also, my mom is coming over, but when she comes over, we pretty much just read. So I'm hoping to finish this today. It's not too terribly long, 360-ish pages. So hopefully I can fly through it and we can move on to Catching Fire. Very exciting package. So let's open it and I will explain. It is the Wayfair series by Becky Chambers. So I read the Monk and the Robot duology last year, I think, and I really loved it. I thought together they're so good. And I just need like Becky Chambers' brand of cozy fantasy or cozy sci-fi. So we have To Be Taught If Fortunate, A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, A Closed in Common Orbit, and Record of a Spaceborne Few. When Rosemary Harper joins the crew of the Wayfarer, she isn't expecting much. The Wayfarer, a patched up ship that's seen better days, offers her everything she could possibly want. A small, quiet spot to call home for a while, adventure in far-off corners of the galaxy, and distance from her troubled past. But Rosemary gets more than she bargained for with the Wayfarer. I am just kind of in the sci-fi mood. My partner and I recently watched The Three Body Problem, the TV show on Netflix, and it's so good. Probably, maybe one of the best shows I've ever seen. It's fan-fucking-tastic. And so I had to read the series, so I got it. We also watched Oppenheimer recently, which was also very good. It's very long. It's over 3 hours, and I don't like movies that are over like 2 hours. So it's excessively long, but it's so good. Cillian Murphy is just, it made me want to watch Peaky Blinders again. But, yep, that's it. That's my mail. been a couple of days since we last talked, mostly because I had a lot of side business stuff that I needed to get done, and also this PMDD episode is just kicking my butt a little bit. I have been very tired and not really in the mood to do anything. I did end up finishing The Hunger Games. It was a decent start to the series, I think. It balances everything pretty well. I don't have any major thoughts, but I was excited going into the second one. I am halfway through. I am shocked by how little is happening, but how quickly this book is going, which I think is a benefit to this series in general. And I'm liking this one more because of the political aspect of it. In the end of Hunger Games, obviously, Katniss made the decision to take what the game makers thought would be poisonous berries because they reneged on their deal that 2 champions from the same district could win, and so she didn't want to kill Peeta, and Peeta didn't want to kill her, and so she made it look like they were going to commit suicide together. And obviously this has a big political impact, which obviously doesn't look good for the Capitol, and it also, they had to accept the 2 victors, so it kind of looks like a rebel pushed back against their rules, and they had to deal with it, and they had to acquiesce. So in the beginning of the book, Katniss is trying to lay low. She's struggling a little bit to find her place in the world because she has always been a provider for her family since she was very young, and she's never really had to find a hobby or really do any interpersonal work to discover who she is as a person and what she likes and what she wants out of life. And so now that she is a victor and has all this money and plenty of food and her family's taken care of, she's struggling a little bit to find her place in the world. And now she's coming up on this tour of the districts and the capital as kind of like a victor tour, I guess, as having had one. They want her to do a tour where she goes through and makes speeches and gets plaques and stuff from the different districts. And of course she has to go with Peeta, and in order to reason away this act of rebellion that she displayed with the berries, they are playing up the romance between the 2 of them. Peeta has confessed actual feelings for her, confessed that he thought that she had actual feelings for him. She says no, it was kind of all in an act. And they sort of have an icy relationship in the beginning, which they end up resolving. But she also gets visited by President Snow, who basically says, your actions were the spark, were the catalyst for rebellions. We don't know to what extent that's true, because obviously there's not a lot of news spread between the different districts. All the districts are very isolated from each other, so we don't know to what extent she actually had an impact. A lot has been going on in the political schemes of the novel so far. She is now going into the Quell, which is every 25 years they celebrate the Hunger Games. They bring out the victors and stuff, and they throw parties and do interviews, I guess. And so we're going into that. I don't like dystopian apocalyptic stories necessarily, but I like rebellion and stuff like that. I like reading it, and I like reading politically heavy books. As far as Peeta and Gale are concerned, I don't love Gale. Don't love their relationship. I like their friendship and the idea of them being friends, but I don't like him getting mad that she didn't return his feelings, or that she had this faux relationship with this guy to stay alive, and that angering him. And they've since resolved the issues, but he never has apologized or anything. And I don't know. I don't like Gale as a character. I think he's entitled. I don't love Peeta either. I do think he's an interesting character. We've definitely gotten, obviously, more personality about him than we have Gale, but I just don't see Katniss as a romance girl, which is fine. And she has said several times, I just want to be alone. I don't want to get married. I don't want to have kids. I don't want to do anything like that. Having that stance and then not respecting it as characters, but also as an author, is a little bit irritating. Obviously, she's 16 and she could change her mind, but she could not change her mind. I knew from a very young age that I didn't want to get married and have kids, and that's never changed. So, I don't know. I am so about the romance. I don't have too many big opinions. I do like Peeta more than Gale, but also I feel like we could just be Team Katniss and not have to even consider putting her in a romance. Those are my thoughts so far. I'm hoping to finish this today. It is Friday. I have to take Bane, our cat, to the vet, but that shouldn't take too long. It's just a checkup. And other than that, tomorrow, Saturday, I'm spending with my mom. but I'm hoping to get a lot of reading done this week. I was hoping to get a lot of reading done this week, and I just didn't for various reasons, but that's okay. I'm hoping that this like Hunger Games theme won't roll over into next week, but if it does, then it does. So we'll talk later. So before I had to take Bane to his vet appointment, I actually ended up finishing Catching Fire. And I liked this way more than I liked the Hunger Games. I was a little bit nervous going into this because I remember that this is another Hunger Games situation. Like, they force all of the previous victors into an arena to the death situation. And I don't love stories that retread the same sort of plot lines, and so I was a little nervous going in, and to my pleasant surprise, the Hunger Games portion was actually not very long in this. There was maybe 100 pages of the actual story was them in the games, and the rest in the beginning was a setup, meeting all the previous victors and setting up for this rebellion of the districts. And that's the portion that I really liked. And I liked the ending of this, the ending of having the cliffhanger be a rebellion inside the Capitol, Gameskeeper in the Capitol being on the side of the rebellion, Haymitch being on the side of the rebellion, and Finnick, a previous victor, also being a leader of the rebellion. I really like. I like that Katniss, who is 17 at the time of this book, is really out of the loop. She's sort of used as like a figurehead of the rebellion. She's used as like the spark and the spokesperson for the rebellion, but largely she has nothing to do with it. She has a really early revelation early on in the book that she wants to fight back, and she wants to use her power and her recognizability and her status as a victor to help people. But largely she doesn't know what that looks like. She doesn't know how to get into contact with other rebels. She doesn't know how to incite a rebellion or where to start. And I like that she's, as this young girl, this young naive girl who really doesn't know much about the world, is sort of just the face, and there's a lot going on behind the scenes that she doesn't know about. I remember this being not everybody's favorite book in the series. I don't know if the like overwhelming opinion is that if this is a good conclusion or not, but it's about the same length as the other ones, which is interesting. And I'm excited to go into this because I'm excited to see Katniss kind of take over her role as a spokesperson and sort of assert some agency in her role. I'm excited that the second round of the Hunger Games wasn't as annoying as I was anticipating, and I'm excited going into this that we're dealing a lot more with like the rebellion and stuff. So my intrigue for the series is growing, and I'm excited to get into Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes because it's significantly longer, so I'm hoping we'll get a lot more behind the scenes and stuff. I think it's gonna be fun. But my plan for today is, it is 5:30, so I would like to get 50% of the way through this book. It's only 360 pages, 370 like the other books. My optimistic goal is 50%. My stretch goal is to finish it tonight. We'll see. I'm gonna try to push through it and see if I can get it done, because I'm pretty much not gonna be reading it all tomorrow, and then that only leaves tomorrow night and Sunday before I wrap up this vlog to get it out to you guys for me to finish Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. So it doesn't seem super realistic, so hopefully I can finish this today and see how that goes. But other than that, I don't really have any updates for you. Nothing crazy happening this weekend. Just a lot of reading. I'm feeling good about reading. I'm feeling like reading is really restful for me right now, which is good. I'm gonna get into Mockingjay and we'll talk. Last night I got like 218-ish pages into Mockingjay, and I have to be completely honest, I'm not liking this at all, really. This beginning portion was fine, but pretty much 50 pages on have been really boring. As soon as we get into her living in District 13 and like the schedule and all of that, it's not what I was hoping for the story. I think in my last clip I talked about wanting to see her kind of come into her own and take over as her role in the rebellion, and she has to some extent, but not in an interesting way. It's been a lot of like stuff happening behind the scenes while she's stuck in District 13 doing nothing, and that's really boring. I'm not liking it. We have gotten her going to a different place now, and she's like been filming and making a lot of little things that they can release to the public, talking about the rebellion and why they're rebelling and why they need help and all that kind of stuff. But I don't care about that. I want to see her actually in the action doing stuff, not just existing in District 13 and having decisions be made for her. And I'm not liking it. I'm gonna get back into reading it, hopefully finish it within the next hour or so, and then move on to Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. But I'm for sure going to be reading a graphic novel in between because I need something. I read Heartstopper Volume 5, really liked it, gave it 5 stars. Really good, really cute, but it hasn't saved my brain rot from Mockingjay. We're probably gonna pick up one of the manga. We'll talk when I'm done. We hope that you have enjoyed this production of Mockingjay, The Hunger Games Book 3, with Dan Collins. Happy Sunday, friends. It's time to wrap up this video. We can start by talking about Catching Fire, which I finished a couple days ago. I'm sorry, not Catching Fire, Mockingjay, which I gave 2 stars. It didn't scrape a 3-star, and I had to pick up the audiobook to just like get through it because I was not liking it. For all of the reasons I already stated, I don't want to harp on it. It just was a disappointment. I ended up reading the Mr. Villain's Day Off, and it sort of recovered my mood a little bit. I read first 3 and really liked them. Very cute. And then I started the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes last night. I ended up getting 134 pages in, and this is a significantly better reading experience than any of the books in the original trilogy. This is about Snow, who is the villain, the president in the original trilogy. This is when he's a like college age kid, and he comes from a prestigious family, but they don't really have any money. This is post-war, after the original war, where the districts tried to fight back against the oppressive capital, and it didn't work out. And we're sort of seeing a different side of that war, and that is from the capital standpoint. He was a child when that was all going on, and he saw the destruction that was left on the capital after the war, and how it affected him, how it affected his family. And it's an interesting narrative that we don't really see. We're used to the capital being portrayed as this like really excessive, wild district that really has no regard for human life, are just like very wasteful. And there's definitely a little bit of that starting in this book, but in general there's a lot of talk of like not wasting food and just trying to get by and trying to like stabilize yourself and your family, and dealing with a lot of the repercussions of war and losing family members. And there is this underlying group of people in the capital that don't like the Hunger Games, and there's a general disgust of the Hunger Games at this point from capital members. They don't even watch it. And so the intention of the capital government at this point is to get people to watch the games. And so they have enlisted children from the university and said that if they will help them figure out how to get people to watch, they'll give them scholarships and all of that kind of stuff. And so they're now mentors. Coriolanus comes from a family that was well known, did well, but they have fallen on hard times since the war. It is him, his cousin, and his grandmother. His grandmother is very staunchly against the district and constantly talks about them as like savages and how they're ruining the world. That's definitely been pushed on Coriolanus, and he's adapted a lot of those ideas, and it's very obvious that he despises people that are not capital residents, people that don't have prestige and money and power. And while he is not in that group, he is desperate to be perceived as someone in that group, and his main goal is to get money for himself and to hide the fact that they don't have any money and that his clothes are hand-me-downs from generations and they're falling apart, and they don't have money for food, and he's really trying to hide all of these things. And then he gets assigned a girl from District 12, and it's kind of well known that the later districts don't really do well. They don't have a lot of food, and their chances of winning the Hunger Games are not that great. And so he's taken the route of using her showmanship abilities to make himself look better. And it's interesting because in the movie you are watching it through his eyes, but it's not like you're hearing his thoughts, and so you're left to have your own opinions about Lucy Gray and all of the other characters, whereas when you're reading his thoughts, you're getting a very self-absorbed opinion of them. He's only thinking of them in terms of his own behavior, how he would respond in a situation, and how he can use their plight to better himself and make his situation better. And so you don't get as much of a empathetic view of Lucy Gray as I feel like you do in the movie. We are still not even at the games yet. We still have them locked in cages, in a cage in a zoo, and we have just gotten a scene where a tribute was killed. The writing, for one, is noticeably better than the original trilogy. While Coriolanus isn't an incredibly emotional character, his thoughts are better written, in my opinion, than Katniss. The writing around Katniss's thoughts was very bleak and simple, whereas we are tackling a lot in Coriolanus's personality. Granted, a lot of that has to do with the fact that Katniss had a lot of obstacles in her life. She was the caretaker for her family, and so she didn't really get to have those formative years where she had a personality and she was able to discover her likes and dislikes. Whereas Coriolanus comes from a impoverished family, he still was allowed to be himself, and he still relied on other people to make up for the things that he was missing in life, and he took no responsibility and takes no responsibility for the way his life is going. It's always somebody else's fault, so he never feels like he has to make up for anything, and it's very different than Katniss. So he's been allowed to develop as a person, even if he seems a little bit self-absorbed and selfish. The writing's already better. You already feel more connected to Coriolanus, even if what you're seeing you don't like. Even if it's a bad person, you feel more connected to him than you do Katniss, in my opinion. With Katniss, like, I felt empathetic, but I didn't understand her character, and so every time she would make a decision, I wouldn't fully understand what spurned that on. Sometimes she was incredibly selfish, and other times she was selfless to an annoying fault, whereas Coriolanus, you understand that everything he's thinking is purely for his own benefit. Every action he's taking is purely for his own benefit. And so I'm enjoying it a lot more. I enjoy character studies. I enjoy books where we're deep into characters' thoughts and their psyche, and so I feel like I am enjoying this way more. But that being said, I'm probably not going to finish this in this video as we need to wrap the vlog up, so I'll probably end up talking about this in next week's vlog. That's it for this video. I really hope you guys enjoyed. If you read anything this week that you really liked, let me know down in the comments, or if you have read The Hunger Games recently and you loved it, or you watched the movie, I would love to talk about that. Other than that, don't forget to subscribe if you like videos like this. I tend to focus on cozy vlogs where I do a lot of reading. All of my socials are linked down below if you're interested. Thanks so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in my next one.